Hey, Michael Church, Crawl Space Ninja and Basement Ninja, and today we got a question from Rod in Port Tobacco, Maryland. He recently had a contractor apply Concrobium mold control to some spots in his crawl space, and whenever they tested those spots, there was still mold present, and he wanted to know if this is normal and should he have it retreated. Stay tuned. Okay, so you can see it's a beautiful, beautiful East Tennessee day. It's morning, about 10 a.m., and decided to do a video outside and wanted to answer Rod's question about Concrobium. A couple things before I get into answering the question is, number one, you need to know there's basically two types of mold testing that contractors use. There's a non-viable and a viable test. Okay, and the difference between them is a non-viable test is registering mold whether it's dead or alive. Typically that would be an aerosol test or a swab or a tape lift test, and you get what's called a non-viable result. So it's going to pick up any mold present and it's going to register that mold, and it doesn't care if it's alive or dead, it's just going to show up. The other test is a viable test, which means it's checking for colony-forming units of mold. So this is the more accurate depiction of whether something has been disinfected or killed properly, okay? So a viable mold test, if he did a viable mold test, Rod, and you still had active mold present, in other words, if the mold was still alive, then obviously the Concrobium didn't work. So what does that mean? Typically, if you're using Concrobium in a crawl space, one of the ways that Concrobium has to work is that the humidity has to be low and the wood or the structure that you're applying it to has to be dry. Most companies don't know how to do mold remediation properly. So they will just go in there without putting any kind of drying mechanism in, no dehu, nothing like that, and they'll just squirt mold killer. By the way, Anabec works in the same principle. If you spray Anabec cleaner or the Anasphere Plus on a wet surface, it can be diluted and become ineffective. So if you're looking to make sure that the contractor does the mold remediation properly, they need to make sure that they dry the structure and keep humidity below 60%, and then, and only then, apply whatever mold remediation product you're using, whether it's Concrobium or Anasphere or the cleaner by Anabec or whatever. Now, the caveat to that is if it's a non-viable mold test, it doesn't matter what kind of product you use. It doesn't matter if you gave it a proper dry time or not. If you dry out the structure, lower the humidity, and you got a lot of visible mold on your floors and on your joists and things like that, and you apply a mold cleaner, doesn't matter if it's Concrobium or whatever, and then you allow it to work, and then you do a non-viable tape lift or you do a swab that's a non-viable, it will still come back positive for mold because it doesn't care if the mold is alive or dead. Okay, and that's why soda blasting is so important, or just some kind of mold removal, whether it's soda blasting or even if you got some dry ice companies out there that do this sort of thing, or you just visibly wipe it off, okay? You've got to remove the mold. So if you're getting positive results on a non-viable test, Rod, what you're gonna need to do is scrub the joists, either use a soda blasting agent or something to get the mold off, and then reapply the Concrobium. If you're getting a positive result, they're showing colony forming units because the mold is still alive, chances are they didn't dry the crawl space out properly, because keep in mind, Concrobium, the reason why we don't like using Concrobium is it has to dry in order to work, okay? It actually crushes the mold, so it still leaves the mold behind, crushes it, and will still show a positive reading in a colony forming unit or a live mold culture if it wasn't dried properly. So Rod, great questions, and if you guys have used any, or ladies have used any of the Concrobium products, let us know down below how they worked for you. I love Concrobium in living spaces. I'm just not a fan of it in crawl spaces or in wet environments. And of course, the Anisphere Plus and the cleaner is great if you want to get that on our DIY store, but you still have to follow mold protocols, whether you do it yourself or you hire a contractor. Make sure they're drying out the structure properly. Make sure if you can afford to get it visibly removed and physically removed, that's the best approach, which is why we always recommend soda blasting. I know not everybody can do that. And oh, by the way, my name is Michael Church. Make sure you answer the question below about, did Concrobium work for you? And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm with Crawl Space Ninja and Basement Ninja. Hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.